welcome all of our stakeholders, our community involvement, our board of directors, all of our visitors that visited us today, and last but certainly not least, our CEO and her great staff. This time, I'd like to do a roll call. Beverly?
Yes. Good morning, yes, sir, Chairman Cody, thank you. Director Emerson? Not present. Director Odell?
Yes.
Thank you. Director Stone? Present. Thank you. Director Lockett?
Here.
Thank you. Director Adams?
Present.
Thank you. Director Robinson?
Present.
Director Leggett? Not present. Director Taylor?
Here.
Thank you. And Chairman Cody?
Present.
Chairman, you have a quorum for today's meeting,
Thank
May
you.
23rd, 2023.
Thank you. At this time, we want to get approval of today's agenda.
So moved.
I second.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Emerson, not present for the vote. Director Odell?
Yes.
Director Stone? Yes. Director Lockett?
Yes.
Director Adams?
Yes.
Director Robinson?
Yes.
Director Leggett? Not present for the vote. Director Taylor?
Yes.
And Chairman Cody?
Yes.
Chairman, motion passed for the approval of today's agenda.
Thank you. So this time, we'd like to go into the public hearing comments. So we're gonna need to take a first and a second.
I'll make a motion to go into public.
I second.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll do a roll call vote.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Director Emerson, not present for the vote. Director Odell?
Yes.
Director Stone?
Yes.
Director Lockett?
Yes.
Director Adams?
Yes.
Director Robinson?
Yes.
Director Leggett? Not present for the vote. Director Taylor?
Yes.
And Chairman Cody?
Yes.
Chairman, motion passed for the first, to enter into a public hearing for the first reading of fiscal year 2024 budget, proposed budget.
Thank you. Now we're moving into the public hearing section of the agenda. I'm Dedrick Cody, Chairman of CAT Board of Directors. I come to you today to share CAT's ongoing commitment to fiscal responsibility and to review the proposed fiscal year 2024 operating budget, capital budget. Due to safety protocols, limited seating, and the well-being of our community, this budget hearing is being conducted as a hybrid meeting, allowing the opportunity for in-person and virtual comments from the public. Before the CAT Board of Directors move forward in making the final decision on the adoption of the proposed budget next month, we will consider comments received today, along with comments made by email and voicemail. Individuals wishing to provide written comments during the hearing may post their comments using the option of Zoom chat box or by emailing your comments to meeting@catchacat.org or by U.S. mail to CAT at 900 East Gwinnett Street. Attention to Board of Directors. Person desiring to provide oral comments about the proposed operating and capital budget may speak during the meeting once the phone and Zoom line open for public comments. Physical copies of the proposed budget are available for review at CAT Central offices and will be available for pickup between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. If you'd like an appointment, time will be given for you to pick it up. You'll also review the proposed budget by visiting our website at catchacat.org under the transparency page. At this time, I'd like to recognize CEO Fady Massimo and Assistant CFO Gloria Royal to present the first reading of the proposed fiscal year 2024 operating and capital budget. Mr. Massimo, Ms. Royal.
Thank you, Chairman. Ms. Royal, if you will go ahead and be prepared for the presentation. Thanks to all who are joining us today, both in person and virtually, to hear this very important presentation. We're very proud of the work that has been done by the board and staff together in developing this operating and capital budget. Again, it is something that is based both on very sound fiscal policy and a fiscally prudent position for the growth of CAT. And it is also visionary in terms of understanding where we are moving CAT toward the future and how to accomplish that goal. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Royal for the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Massimo. Good morning, everyone, and good morning to our public viewers. As Mr. Massimo stated, it is Chatham Area Transit's staff financial responsibility to financial fiduciary responsibility to provide information to the board for approval of the fiscal year 2024 budget. Okay, thank you. Our budget period is from July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2024. Some of our revenue challenges in presenting this budget for fiscal year 2024 has been the loss of COVID relief funds. As we know, we have been receiving COVID funds since the pandemic, but as of this coming up budgeted year, we will no longer have those funds. Also, we have not been operating fully all of our agency programs. Some of the ones that we have not operated 100% has been the Senior Circular, Senior and Disabled Mobile Services, which we had not begun before the pandemic, but we are looking forward to beginning this program in budget year, fiscal 2024. The University Pass, also with ridership being down during the period of the pandemic, we have also had a decrease in fare revenue. Next slide. Our expenditure challenges has been insurance costs, in which it was anticipated that we would have an increase in insurance costs of 30 to 50%. However, over the last couple of months, we have been working diligently with our brokers to get that cost decreased. And I can positively say that we do have good news coming from the work that has been put into this by our partners, Seacrest Sterling. Other challenges have been recruitment and retention and employee benefits. Of course, in order to retain our employees, we have to budget for that in order to issue or have benefits available. We also have to incorporate that into our budget. Next slide. Investing in the vision, where we want to see CAT. We are currently working with our consultants in the transit plans. We are working with them because we want to see CAT do great things. We want to be able to run a efficient service. We want to be able to serve the public. Some of the programs that we have that are coming in the next fiscal year is the pilot program. We're responding to the community transportation needs, our on-demand service, paratransit, fixed route, as well as first mile, last mile. We want to provide safe, reliable, and convenient service to our passengers. Next slide. our fiscal year 2024 budget, we will have a structural balanced operating budget. Our revenues will equal our expenditures. Also, we look forward to planning for our capital needs. And with doing so, we are anticipating continuing funding our reserve. That is very important. In order for us to continue to meet our capital needs as well as operate on a daily basis, we have to make sure that we have available funds within our reserves. Next slide. Our fiscal year 2024 operating budget proposed $32,191,000. Our revenues and our expenses are $32,191,000. We do have a difference of $2,129,000. And that difference is basically due to the increase in insurance for this fiscal year 2024. Next slide, please.
Let me ask a question. So the insurance was about 2 million
It is
differential from last year?
from last year, and I can say this, Director Stone, we are anticipating it not being that much of a difference because working with the brokers, we have got a lesser rate, so we're expecting for it to come in a lot. Yes,
That's what I thought, that's what I was asking.
yes, ma'am. It would definitely come in a
I
lot
thought we cut
less.
that down a little bit.
We did
Yeah,
get
I
it down a
think-
little bit. It's not finalized yet though, and so we left the presentation as we presented to you all in workshop and as we sit today, until we finalize those numbers out with the renewal and know what we know, but that means that there'll just be an additional savings that we can recognize at that point.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, like Mr. Massimo just stated, that the numbers are moving with the insurance. I know on the previous slide, you did see 2 million. Well, 1.3 of that is in the insurance, and this is a breakout of the different categories within the insurance and the amount of fiscal year 2024 that exceeded fiscal year 2023. Next slide. We also have a capital budget that is also balanced. Our capital budget is $17,052,000, revenue and expenditures. And we have listed a list of projects that we hope to continue working on or begin working on in fiscal year 2024, which includes the ferry maintenance, ferry vessel maintenance and rehab, bus and van replacement, property, building enhancements, and electric bus infrastructure. Thank you so much for listening. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Royal. Excellent presentation. I think, Mr. Chairman, we're ready to move now into a regular presentation.
All right, we're gonna,
Close the public hearing.
if we like, I wanna ask our board administrator, any chat comments. And email that is sent. Have none?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to close the public hearing.
I second the motion.
Beverly?
Director Emerson? Not present for the vote. Director Odell?
Yes.
Director Stone? Yes. Director Lockett?
Yes.
Thank you. Director Adams?
Yes.
Director Robinson,
Yes.
Director Leggett,
Yes.
Director Taylor,
Yes.
and Chairman Cody.
Yes.
Chairman motion.
All right, thank you. All right, at this time, I would like to welcome Captain Darius J. Postel. Captain Postel is of the 1788th QM 100th 10th Combat Sustainment Support Battalion with the Georgia Army National Guard. Captain Postel received his commission in May 2013 through ROTC at Georgia Southern University as a transportation officer. Captain Postel resides in Savannah, Georgia, with his wife, Yamu Postel, and their daughters, Jael and Araya Postel. He is one of the frontline heroes here at Chatham Area Transit as a transportation supervisor. Please help me introduce Captain Darius Postel.
Chairman, Board of Directors, thank you all for having me today. Possible as well as supervisor, transportation supervisor, of course. But before we get into that, I would like to present the Board of Directors with a coin, give a unit point for excellence to our soldiers. I do appreciate you all for the work that you're doing at Chatham Area Transit, as well as your support for your military personnel. So I'm going to present that coin to you. This is my unit coin. Thank you all.
It goes straight to the bank. Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to go into the award presentation. This is the Patriot Award with the submitted through the Employee Support Guard and Reserve. The ESGR is there for the soldier as well as the employer. So if you all ever have questions about laws or regulations as it pertains to how to deal with the soldier in order to mitigate that conflict, that resource is there for you all as well as the soldier. All right. The first presentation will be going to Mr. Willie Dorsey. Mr. Dorsey, I just appreciate your support for me on time and on the way checking in on my family. I appreciate that. That's a lot to work that you put into Chatham Area Transit, the sacrifices and additional time that you put into an organization that does not go unnoticed. So that's why I decided to. Thank you, sir. All right, this award is for Ms. Faith Massimo. Ms. Massimo, thank you for the support here. Conversations that I have with you as it pertains to my service as a guard, support state, but around to the organization. It really means a lot to support you and the obligation that I have to support the Constitution of the United States of America. So I really do appreciate your support. Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Next presentation. Thank you all for that, Captain Postel. Our next presentation, we're going to go to our employee group health insurance. Sterling Seacrest Pritchard.
As if insurance wasn't boring enough, you want me to go after him? Set me up for failure.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Jessica Pettigo. I'm with Sterling Seacrest Pritchard. We like to keep changing our name just so y'all have to pay attention every time. I'm going to go through this presentation. I am morally opposed to reading every word on a presentation. So if I skip over something, stop me, slow me down, answer questions as we answer. If y'all want to answer them, that'd be great too. But ask questions as we go. So I am going to run through, if you will, just kidding, I have the clicker. They set me up for success and I still don't succeed. All right, so today we will go through the medical renewal offer from Anthem, the marketing evaluation when we went out to the market, and then there are some other kind of smaller items that'll tie into that, COBRA, HRA, HSA. We'll touch on the wellness program because that's been a major focus for the CAT leadership the last 2 years. And then dental vision, we'll round it out with some life and disability and some of the communication that we've done in the last year or so, and we'll continue. The medical plan renewal, as many of y'all know, CAT has been with Anthem, or Blue Cross Blue Shield, since 1969, which is, I think, the longest client Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield has, and that has always been a very valued relationship between the two. When we get the renewal each year, of course, the main focus is the amount of claims dollars that are paid out, and that's across the board. The biggest portion of that is what we call large claims, and that's considered over $25,000 as far as this reporting is concerned. Last year, there was 13 large claims. This year, there was the same number of large claims, but there were more in dollars. So you'll see this year there was about $285 or $250,000 more in those large claims than there were last year at renewal. And what that basically means is that's working against you. The next bullet down, you can see the loss ratio this year was 102.3%, and last year it was 99.5%, which is still really high. And what that loss ratio means is basically out of the dollars and premium that CAT, by way of payroll deduction through employee payroll and through employer portion, what CAT pays to Anthem, last year 99.5% of that was paid back in medical claims for CAT employees. This year, Anthem paid more money out than CAT sent into Anthem. So as y'all can imagine, that's not a good business practice. That doesn't even include their operating costs, like bills and salaries and that sort of stuff. So where you kind of want to live is 70 to 75% is a healthy place to be. And we haven't hit that in a number of years, and I'll show you that in just a minute. So the initial Anthem renewal came in at 28% over current rates. We negotiated with them, and that long-standing relationship did take into account, and they were able to get that down to 18.5% over the current rates. That is just over $400,000, let me get all the words in there, over what CAT is currently paying. And when I say CAT, I do mean both the employee and employer portion, so all total.
And I'm sure you did this research in other companies besides Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Absolutely.
I'm going through another board of directors of Blue Cross Blue Shield because they've had a long time shop way up on their rates, and they just basically part of the company.
You're teasing what I got coming, but yes, it's coming. This is, spoiler, this is outlining from 2016 to 2023, and this is where I was saying this last line here is the loss ratio. You can see only 2 years, in 2016 and 2020, were we even close to 75%. But this year in 2023 was the highest in 8 years for that loss ratio. So that it's difficult, but that's a lot of what the executive team at CAT is so focused on wellness and getting people healthier and more engaged so that we can bring that loss ratio down. That would save money for CAT and employees. All right, now to answer your question fully, we went out to the market. Unfortunately, the fully insured medical world is getting smaller by the day. So we pushed out to everyone in the market, which is Aetna, UHC, and Cigna. Humana, as you might have heard, recently left the medical market. So there used to be 5 options and we're down to 4. So we are limited in that fully insured world. Aetna declined to quote because they were not competitive, which also kind of gives you an idea that Anthem's renewal was not that far out of line. So Cigna came back, their initial renewal was 16% over current. We negotiated that to 13.6. But what I'm going to focus on is United Healthcare, or UHC. Their initial proposal was 17%, and we were able to negotiate that down to 7.54%. That the negotiated renewal is an increase of $166,789. So a substantial decrease from that initial Anthem renewal, visual for those of us who like graphs. And then this has a lot of information. I'm going to take some time on this slide. So you can see, and I do have a typo on here, per employee per year, and I have PEPM, which is month, not year, so PEPY, I apologize for that. This is how I like to look at it. Of course, you've got the total at the top, where you can see the total cost. But I like to think about it per person. So currently, each employee on the medical plan is costing $14,642. It's a lot of money. And of course, I try to explain this to employees too during open enrollment that, I don't go to the doctor, so I feel like I should be really cheap to my employer. But when you look at it, you realize, we're all in it together and you're having to pay your share of everything. So it's easier to me to kind of right size it and think of currently CAT is paying $14,642 for each employee. You see Anthem wanted to increase to $17,351. And UHC, we got back down to $15,757. And you can see the total difference in the bottom line is $166,789. And I'm going to show you 2 different ways where we can get that kind of close to $100,000. All right, we're going to get $65,000 back from UHC in different avenues. The first one being this first bullet point, because carriers know it's a burden on HR departments, on employers, on their brokers to move insurance carriers, they give you a $40,000 administrative credit. Just, you don't have to submit invoices, anything else. On the second invoice after renewal, that $40,000 will be on the invoice as a credit. So don't have to prove anything to them, don't have to do anything, that's already offered. Additionally, with this offer, a lot of times we see in the market where someone comes in real low to win the business, say, oh, I'm only going to, a rate increase of 2%. Well, and then the next year they have to make their money back. So all of a sudden we have a rate increase of 30%. We were able to negotiate a second year rate cap. So this would be if you move to UHC, the first year would be that 7.54% increase. And then the second year, we're not saying it would be this, but it would be a max of 16.9. And as y'all saw on the prior slides, that is lower than we have come in the last few years. So that's kind of a safety net, and it tells you UHC really wants your business. They're not looking for you just to move for 1 year and then keep jumping around. They want that longevity. In fact, the representative at UHC had been with Anthem for years and years. And so he's had his eyes on CAT. He has always enjoyed working on this account. And so he has worked very hard for that. Another item that is very insurance-y, the pooling point on your medical plan is currently $150,000. And what that means is if you have a large cancer claim, let's say, and that cancer claim is $250,000. When that renewal comes around, they don't look at anything above that $150,000. They kind of take anything over $150,000, and you're not, that's not taken into account into the mathematics of your renewal. That is dropping to $100,000 if you move to UHC. So therefore, in essence, when come renewal, you're saving $50,000 on any large claim that you may have and towards that renewal figure. So that's good news there. Also, the UHC contract includes a performance funding agreement. And this means if the plan does well, CAT can get a refund. And so I know the loss ratio does not look great, but if we get down to anything below 75%, basically, then UHC will split the credit 50-50 between CAT and UHC. So again, we may not make any money back using that method, but also there's no fee for it or cost to it or anything else. It doesn't impact your current rates. So it's really a win-win if we can keep working towards getting that loss ratio down. Also, UHC and Anthem have very similar medical networks in Savannah. So that way employees aren't having to uproot from their physicians and find new physicians. There might be some of that, of course, with any change. But we're going to educate on a new network if there's a decision to move to UHC. But there should be fairly little disruption to employees. Keep forgetting I'm in charge up here. High plan, again, I'm not going to run through all these numbers for you, but they are here if you want them. Basically, I want to just draw down this percentage difference. Now, this is breaking out each plan, your high plan, middle plan, and low plan. Your high plan is your $2,000 deductible. It is the most popular plan. It has 97 total employees on it. And you see Anthem was requesting a 17% increase, and UHC got that down to 6.83. So that's like I said, your most popular plan impacting the most employees. So 6.83 in the world of medical insurance, unfortunately, is below trend, really. Taking that down to the actual premium, the blue, so the green would be the premiums from UHC all total. CAT splits them 75% to 25% between employer, employee, and based on last year's renewal, this would be an increase. That last column on the right would be the biweekly, which is the pay schedule here, the biweekly change in contributions to the employee. And then I've got that again for the next two plans, just to give you an idea. Again, this is the middle plan. It's a $2,500 deductible. This has 42 employees on it. And you see Anthem asked for a 20% renewal, and UHC was able to get that down to 11%. And it's not worth going into, but I did include Cigna, should you want to see those numbers. Again, in blue, I do want to also say those are monthly numbers, not the biweekly pay schedule. So only the last column does it break it down to biweekly. The low plan, this is the $3,500 deductible. It comes with a HSA, which I'll get to in just a minute. And all three plans have an HRA, which I'll also touch on in a minute, because everyone loves lots of acronyms. The low plan has 12 employees on the low plan. And again, you can see these actually decreased in the biweekly value, not by much, but 1% overall, and we will take whatever savings we can get. Okay. All right, here we are, the HSA or Health Savings Account. I am a huge proponent of this. If it works for you, it's great, and if not, it's not made for everybody. But currently, CAT offers an HSA plan. You have to have federal regulations. You have to have a qualified high deductible plan, where the government sets the limits or minimums on the deductible and the out-of-pocket each year, and that changes year to year. CAT has offered a high deductible qualified plan so that employees could have a health savings account, but CAT has not offered the health savings account. If you move to UHC has a promotion going right now where there is no cost, no cost for the maintenance fee to CAT or the employee to offer that HSA. And these are employee dollars. So a flex savings account that more people are kind of familiar with, that is, that's taken out and that's available to the employee on January 1st. For CAT, it's July 1st, sorry. And then if that employee doesn't use all of that money, then it goes away. That whole use it or lose it that most of us know. The health savings account is employee funded. Employers can contribute, but generally speaking, it's employee funded. And that money is the employee's forever. And the health savings account is their own account. If they leave CAT, it stays with them. You can pay long-term care premiums with it. It's yours into retirement and beyond for medical expenses. It's a triple tax benefit. It is not taxed when the money goes into the account. It is not taxed when it comes out, as long as it's for medical expenses. If you buy your boat, it's taxed very well. However, if you keep it to the regulations, it's not taxed going in, coming out, and you can invest the money, and it's not any income from investments is also not taxed. So, most of your retirement accounts, 401ks and stuff, you have to pay taxes on those investment earnings, and this you don't. So the money is never taxed beginning to end, as long as you spend it on the right things. So Stephanie and I have talked about this more recently. I don't think it made it into the official recommendation, but I would recommend CAT offer that since it's at no cost, and it's a good benefit to the employees. If we were to move to UHC, there are a couple things just to keep in mind. COBRA currently is offered through an Anthem partner, so that would have to move to UHC, but there's an available equivalent through UHC. And then the HRA is currently managed through a third party. And currently the HRA pays for the last 1,000 of the employee's deductible. So it basically is very generous. So it takes the high plan down to a $1,000 deductible, which is very unheard of these days. The middle plan, it takes it down to a $1,500 deductible, which is very reasonable for all things. And then the HSA plan, it takes from $3,500 down to $2,500 deductible with that it is on the back end. So the employee is responsible for the first portion, and then CAT pays that last 1,000. As it's set up currently, the employee has to come out of pocket for the deductible and then file for reimbursement at a later time. And so that we have educated on that a lot in the last year or so because it wasn't being taken advantage of. And obviously that's a huge benefit for employees that is there to be used. So we have seen an uptick. I couldn't bring the exact numbers because it's run on the calendar basis, not on the fiscal year. But we have seen an uptick in that. And if you were to move that to UHC, it would be automatic to where it takes off that headache for the employees having to not only be aware of the HRA, but also remember and submit the paperwork and all of that. So it would automatically operate in the background. And also that means the employee would not have to come out of pocket first with that money. Wellness initiatives. So a lot's been going on. Y'all know the Wellness Center had the grand opening last fall. I know they've been putting a lot of effort to that. UHC does have an embedded wellness program that would tie in well with all the efforts that CAT is doing internally. And employees can earn up to $300 back, and that's straight from UHC. So it's not coming from CAT's purse, it's straight from UHC. And then also, working down to whittle down to that 100,000, UHC is offering $25,000 to CAT in wellness incentive money. And that would be, it could be, in fact, behind tab 2, I have a listing, should anybody need some reading for later. But they will pay for flu shots, biometric screening. You can get healthy food, which I know CAT's already doing. Basically, I went through the list and there's so many things that CAT's already doing that then could be paid by this $25,000. So I have zero doubt, I do not like to leave money behind. I have zero doubt that CAT could use up that $25,000 and fully get that paid back to them. And then also there's been discussion, and I'll leave most of this to Stephanie and her team, but to tie for next fiscal year, to start tying the premiums of the medical plan to a wellness and non-wellness rate to really incentivize the employees to participate. And that's very common across our book of business. Any questions on medical before I dive into the world of dental? I promise I'm not going to spend as much time on the rest. Dental, just a recap for anyone who hasn't memorized the last few years of insurance. In 2021, so 2 years ago, Anthem gave us a 38% dental increase, and we said no thank you. So we went with MetLife. It was a 2-year rate guarantee, and they actually met the current dental rates at that time. So we were able to hold those flat for employees. This year, CAT employees, use their dental plan is what we learn every year. So there was, unfortunately, a 49% increase, which the good news is dental and vision are both much smaller dollars over, if we had a 49% medical increase, can't even think about it. But so we went out to the market and had 5 different companies that were able to give a proposal. The lowest one was 42%. So unfortunately not a great savings, but again, it kind of justifies. We had everything from 42 to 81% submitted back in proposals. So we talked to MetLife, and MetLife agreed to meet that lowest proposal at 42%, so that there will be no disruption to CAT employees with their providers. And also, it's one less thing that CAT's HR department and executive team have to then implement between now and 7/1. CAT pays the substantial amount of the dental premiums. Last year, they paid about 85% of the dental premiums. So it's a very small cost for the employees that's passed on. Vision. We've got the Anthem is the darker blue, UHC. So it's currently tied with the medical with Anthem. It would, of course, make very little sense to move the medical and not the vision, and part of it would create mass confusion for employees for sure. So we would suggest moving the vision with the medical to UHC. And there's actually a savings. So there was a 2-year rate guarantee with Anthem, but UHC is actually coming in 4.78% below current. So employees will see a savings there. And not only have rates haven't increased in 6 years, but they've actually decreased twice. Also moving, if you move the vision to UHC, you get a 0.5 point savings on the medical plan. That was already taken into account in these numbers. Starting last year, CAT paid 100% of the employee-only vision plan. So that was also a nice benefit that started last year. And I will take very little time on this because last year, the life and disability rates came with not a huge increase, but 6.32%, and every dollar counts. So we marketed it and came up with Hartford, who had 11.6% decrease from the current rates. We are still under that rate guarantee. So those rates will not change. And just as a reminder, just because it was very generous, I'd like to remind everybody that how much CAT takes care of their employees. We actually, with that last renewal starting last year, increased the benefits for long-term, short-term disability and basic life for all classes, union, non-union, and executive as well. And then continuing our communication and education, behind tab 1, and I'm very sad Clinton's not here because this was his favorite part last year, is the draft guide is behind tab 1. Last year was the first year we did a guide, and just because y'all don't get to see the final, this is what it looks like. And it's very snappy, very slick, and it breaks all the boring stuff I'm saying down into real words, so that not only can people understand their benefits, but use them more wisely. And so that's what, during open enrollment, I just thought this had been off the whole time. It's going to start over. During open enrollment, we really try to focus on not just, I'm using a lot of boring words for y'all because I feel like I have to, but for the employees, we really do try to make it make sense. One of my biggest pet peeves is people not understanding their benefits because the United States of America has overcomplicated this whole situation, and also spending more than is necessary. Like, none of us want to give up more money or pay more at the doctor's office because we were out of network and we didn't know it and that sort of thing. So we do a lot to educate on how to save money, whether it's through a flexible spending account or staying in network or using your preventive visits, that sort of thing. And we've seen an uptick in some of that. We certainly will if you move to UHC, especially educate on staying in network to make sure that people do confirm that their current physicians are in the new network so that we don't have that where people are accidentally going out of network. And then again, we've discussed a lot of the wellness and some of the HSA benefits because nobody understands that. So, and we've worked with with Stephanie and her team a bunch. I know there's videos in the break room now, and fruit. I love some of the initiatives they're doing. I won't go into it, but partnering with Healthy Savannah is coming in and doing lunch and learns, and so that's a lot of what we've kind of worked on the last few years so that we can get moving in the right direction. Yes, ma'am.
I wanted to mention on those community partnerships, this is one we're really proud of too, is we're now working with the Extension Service, Chatham County Extension Service, and UGA, in addition to Healthy Savannah, about coming in and not only doing lunch and learns, but there's also some really interesting programming they have to offer incentives for healthy eating and healthy cooking and all those kinds of things. And we're excited about that county partnership.
Wonderful. That's great. Also, UHC, and this is not, Anthem has a lot of these as well, but, and I did not put them in the presentation because I was afraid y'all pull the hook out. But behind tab 2 in the report, you'll see a lot of different programs. They have a weight loss program, a healthy pregnancies program, tobacco cessation program. So a lot, these programs, and they're free for the employees to use. So that, of course, will also communicate at open enrollment if you move to UHC, that those, and a number of these were available with Anthem as well. But of course, open enrollment is our one time a year where we really get to talk face to face with everyone and try to let them know, because it can be I know it's overwhelming, but let them know kind of all the opportunities that are out there that they can take advantage of if they want to. And then lastly, and then I will sit down so y'all don't get the hook, behind tab 3, it just has, again, the CAT offers their employees a lot. And this is what comes with the Hartford Life and Disability policies. It is an EAP, employee assistance program, which CAT has pushed a lot over the last year and a half, where it's completely confidential and employees can call in for free and get assistance through therapists on a myriad of different topics, all in its CAT. It's completely confidential. CAT doesn't know who's calling or if anyone's calling or anything else. And then also there's services to help create a will, and then also guidance during grieving and funeral processes that employees can use, and that's all at no cost to the employee as well. So, are there any questions? All right, I will stop punishing y'all with insurance. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next we have a master transit plan, our recommendation, Nelson Tiger.
As they're getting started, one of the things I want to mention, we had sent the recommendations piece out to the board to begin review of that over the weekend. And of course, and I provided some more information related to that, I believe, yesterday. But wanted to remind everyone that this is the same, this is the project that's been underway for about a year. We have been working with the community in so many different ways, whether it's in public meetings or focus groups or the stakeholder committee, and so forth. So there's been a lot, and a very broad cross-section of the community has been involved. We also, and we've worked together, both the short and long-term sort of viewpoints of how we move forward with the vision for CAT's future. And we originally presented, 2 months ago, we presented the what. What are we looking for? What are the types of projects? Where are the initiatives and so forth? So we presented the core of the what about 2 months ago. Then a month ago, we presented the how. How are we going to do this? Where's the money going to come from? What are the strategies to implement? So we've been breaking it up in a way to allow lots of time for everybody, both the community and the board, to hear what's the what, now what's the how. This is our first meeting to really bring it all together in a consolidated series of recommendations that are both what and how. And then we'll have continue a month to review that and to really understand it, ask questions as we're completing up the public outreach. And then in June, we'll be bringing this back for the board's adoption. So we're incredibly excited for what this represents for the future of CAT. These are not only are they plans for your vision, but they are sort of the business plan of how you demonstrate to all the investors that are needed, all the partnerships that are needed for how you're going to move this forward, that you really have thought through it and are ready to deliver. So with that, I will turn it over to Denise Grabowski, and I appreciate everyone's work on this.
Thank you so much, Ms. DeMassimo. It is a pleasure to be with you once again. And Jessica said she had a hard act to follow. I think I have an even harder act to follow. We're in Rotary together, so we get to see each other a lot. But it's a pleasure to be here. My name is Denise Grabowski with Symbiosity, and I'm here representing the Nelson Nygaard team. We also have George Mayer in the Atlanta office, who's available on Zoom, who is very steeped in all of the technical work that's gone into this document. So if we have any questions for him, he's available. And then also Amanda Vandegrift is here with InfraStrategy. So she's going to be talking about the financing and how we get the money to make all these great and wonderful things occur. So I will go ahead and jump right in. As Ms. DeMassimo said, this is really bringing things kind of full circle so that we can tee up to come back to you in June for official adoption of the master plan. And we are going to present a couple of new bits of information that we hope will be helpful for you, particularly relating to equity and how we can look through the lens of equity as we are seeking to make these recommendations move into implementation. So for a project update, we have been on the streets and talking to a lot of people during the month of May about the master transit plan, getting a lot of great input and feedback, and people are very excited about what's happening at CAT. They truly are. We've made updates to the project website. We have an online survey that is now available to the community that will be available through the 1st of June. We had spent a couple hours out on the platform at the ITC, had great conversations there. We had an open house here with our elected officials. Several of you came to attend, so we appreciate your coming by. That was really a great opportunity to have some in-depth one-on-one conversations with our elected officials, because those partnerships we know are really critical to CAT's both near and long-term success.
Denise,
we've also held,
one
yes.
One thing I want to mention on that, sorry to interrupt, one of the things that was really interesting about that open house was there were elected officials who were here from Port Wentworth and Garden City. There were officials who were here from Pooler.
And Thunderbolt.
Absolutely. And so it was really a very diverse group of both elected and business leadership in the community that were here that evening with lots of good questions. We had alderpersons from the city council. We had county commissioners who were here. And it was a very robust and lively discussion. So, but I thought it was interesting that full spectrum of the community that was there.
Yep, and also to your state senators were here as well. So
that's exactly right.
Yes, so it was a great turnout, great opportunity. We do have, we've had several focus groups. We have another one that we're hosting next week with Inspiritus, which provides transition service to immigrants coming into the community. And we also have a virtual meeting coming up tomorrow at 6:30. Time is flying very quickly through the month of May. So our master transit plan, obviously we're presenting to you for review today. We'll come back to you for official adoption in June, and then July we'll have that final document. So much like your budget process, it's kind of taking it into bite-sized pieces for easy digestion. We'll have that final document for you in July that has all of the information pulled together into one place. So many of these recommendations you've seen, but just as a reminder for anyone who might be online who hasn't seen this, we started from your vision for Chatham Area Transit as an organization and as a whole. And those priorities really fed into the goals for the master transit plan. So we took these 11 priorities for the board of directors, translate them into these goals and strategies that we are using to continue our framework as we develop the master transit plan. And I just want to point out again that equity, you'll see both clearly stated on both of these. These are the strategies that we've been talking to you about for several months. So I'll skip over these unless you have questions. We certainly can talk about any of these in more detail, but we spent a lot of time talking about these various strategies. So what's the purpose of the framework, the equity framework? Again, this is an opportunity where you can really look to advance public transit and invest in public transit in a way that is equitable from a socioeconomic standpoint, from a racial standpoint, and meets the needs of those in the community who most rely on transit services. So it ensures that those priorities are made in a way where the communities that most need those can benefit from those priorities, and that those investments are moving CAT forward in a way that is equitable to all. So if we look at our current conditions here in Chatham County, a couple of the takeaways. This is probably not a big surprise to any of you to look at where our populations are, low wealth populations that are most dependent on transit, so they have a higher propensity to use transit. They also typically have a lower percentage of personal vehicle use, so therefore transit is even more important to be able to provide service to these communities. And investing in transit in these communities will make sure that we are not only addressing equity issues, but also can help to increase transit usage in Chatham County. We also know that we have 8 routes that serve 80% of our riders. So when we look at those 8 routes and investing in those routes, we can also take another deeper dive into how those routes are serving the needs of our populations, once again, who are most dependent on it. So when we overlay this map here, so George is the one he's online and makes all these beautiful maps that provide all this great analysis. When we overlay the high propensity to use transit, so these are low wealth communities with less vehicle usage, along with our high ridership routes, we can really see where those investments start to return an even greater opportunity to both advancing equity and also increasing ridership. Job opportunities, that is a huge priority from CAT, and that's something we've heard quite a bit from the community as well. How can we get people to jobs? How can we get people to better opportunities? We know that we have a very strong central business district in the city of Savannah, but we also know we have emerging job centers outside of the historic central business district. We've got those already out in West Chatham, and we know that they are continuing to grow in Bryan County with the mega plant and all of the ancillary developments happening around there. So we want to make sure that we can be very forward thinking and making sure that we are improving and increasing access to not only our existing job centers, but those that are continuing to emerge as well. When we look at community priorities, one of the things that we heard loud and clear is fix it first. And so that's one of the things that we definitely got in our recommendations, is looking at how can we fix unreliable and infrequent service. That's really critically important, especially when we're talking about job access, because if you have a job where many of us have a little bit more flexibility in our jobs, where if we're running late, we can call, say, hey, I'll be there in a few minutes, or the bus was running late. Not everyone has that luxury. And so it's really important, especially when we're talking about job access, that we can address problems of service. Increasing transit service and improving bus stops, these are, opportunities to make sure that we are meeting the needs of our community and doing so in a way that is dignified and gives respect to our riders from their first interaction with CAT at the stop. And schooling, increasing school transportation options has been a big priority for CAT, and something that, as a representative of the school board, I'm very excited about as well, and many of us are. And this is something that, again, can meet the needs of our students and also benefit CAT as well. So this is a group of students we met with from Johnson High School. Last week I met with a group of students from Groves High School. And so engaging with the youth has been a really great opportunity throughout this entire process. Piloting microtransit. Every time we talk to someone about microtransit, they're like, wait, what? That sounds so cool, right? So it's this new opportunity to think about transit in a different way that people are very, very excited about. So if we have this equity framework, how do we move it into implementation? So these lenses of equity can be utilized as you are looking to your transit master plan and how you implement these strategies. So there's a lot of words here. I won't necessarily go through all of them. I know you have this with you, but just thinking about, as you're making these priorities, these are some questions that you can run through in your mind of when we are going through, is a particular strategy meeting the needs of our target audience, our communities of color, our low wealth populations, those that are most dependent on transit? Who will benefit? How will they benefit? Are they being engaged in the process? Are they aware of the opportunities to be engaged? And how can this be highlighted through really increased public outreach and stakeholder? And that's something that Ms. DeMassimo and I have talked a good bit about, particularly moving forward with our microtransit, because anytime we have a new service, it's really important that we work diligently, especially to get into those harder to reach communities. when we're evaluating our service improvements, looking at service area and service characteristics, prioritizing those improvements in those areas, once again, that need them the most so that we can continue to move forward in a more equitable way. For our bus stops and our transit centers, we've already talked about those 8 lines that carry 8% of our riders, but even within those 8 lines, applying another lens of equity through that to identify where those bus stops are needed most. Because it's, again, not a surprise to you, but many of those communities, the lower wealth communities and communities of color, are also the ones that have fewer sidewalks. Sometimes they are the ones that have fewer stops with the amenities that we want to make sure that we have at all the stops. So let's make sure that we can address those needs first for those communities. When we're looking at our transit hubs and our mobility centers, are we looking at the needs of the full community that will be served by those new transit hubs? What are the resources and services that are available in those areas? And who will those mobility hubs serve? Again, the mobility hubs are a little bit larger stops that will probably have more amenities, because you may have several lines coming together at one place. You may have micro transit zones overlapping with service lines. So you have the potential for more people to be located at those mobility hubs at any one time. As we look at evaluating the programmatic improvements, are we, again, increasing access to jobs, to education, and to healthcare? We've also heard a lot about the need to be able to get the healthcare. We met with a seniors group last week, and the one lady said that one of the temporary service lines, that she can't get to her doctor anymore, right? So it's a very personal impact that transit has on everyone's lives, and so we want to make sure that we're looking at that. Increasing affordable and sustainable mobility options. CAT is doing so much with electrification of your fleet, which also has the added benefit of public health through the reduced emissions. So making those investments, again, in those communities that need it most can have the most impact. You're talking about health and wellness. The best way to address health and wellness is from that proactive position. And then increasing CAT's presence in the community. We've talked about CAT branding and making sure everyone knows about these great services that are affiliated with CAT. So how do we pay for it all? This is where I get to turn it over to Amanda to answer the million-dollar question. Oh, sorry. I was trying to turn it over too soon. Okay, so some of our strategies for the short term, and again, some of this you've seen already, will be prioritized strategies for transit investment. So this is addressing some of that, those first needs that we need to address through service and our stops, making sure that we are aligned to equitable outcomes and these programs to support workers. We got a lot of positive feedback when we talked about late night vouchers, and when we talked about the program to support people who are interviewing for a job, where they would get a voucher to go to a job interview. If they're successful in receiving that job, then the first 3 weeks of their transportation would be covered through vouchers using CAT, so that they had the time to be able to get on their feet and get settled in their new position. So in the short term, we are very excited to look to pilot our first microtransit zones. So we have those that are highlighted here. The first 3 will be the 2 in West Chatham, the 1 in East Savannah, and then the 1 on Wilmington and Whitmarsh would be envisioned as a future potential phase. We already have the DOT shuttle that has been expanded to Carver Village and Cloverdale. We want to bring back all of our bus lines to 30-minute service or better, and start back with weekend, Saturdays, and Sunday service. Again, heard a lot of feedback about, when a service changes, you hear back from those people. The microtransit, of course, will be introduced with a $1.2 million SMART grant that CAT received, so very excited about that opportunity. And then forming those partnerships to connect employees and employers and be able to launch into future opportunities. In the midterm, we want to continue to improve investments in our high frequency corridors. The goal is to be able to get to 15-minute or better on the 4 corridors of Abercorn, Waters, MLK, and Augusta Avenue. And then 30 minutes again on our other routes, expand microtransit as it succeeds. So one of the great things about this pilot opportunity, and Mr. Massimo spoke beautifully about this at the open house, is because it's a pilot and we've got great partners that are a part of that pilot, it kind of gives you the opportunity to play with it a little bit and see what works, so that we can in fact launch a successful program and grow it across the county. continued investments in bus stops and passenger amenities, the new ferry dock and service, and exploring express bus and bus on shoulder opportunities, again, especially as we see these job centers continue to move outside of the historic urban core. And then longer term, the vision is that we are countywide with our microtransit opportunities, that we have all of our fixed route service running at 30 minutes or better with a high frequency, again, on those 4 major corridors and more if possible. The express bus is running, and we are looking for continuing opportunities to be able to partner with more employees and employers to make sure that we are getting people to the jobs that they need. Now I'm going to turn it over to Amanda. Thanks, Amanda.
Thank you, Denise, and good morning, everyone. Good to see you again. So last time we talked, and Ms. DeMassimo mentioned this before, we talked about the how. It was an initial look at the how, and the how's pretty complicated. So let's dive a little deeper now that we see the recommendations. How are we going to fund this? And as we discussed last time, CAT is on the right path. You have, and I think you just discussed this last week, $13.7 million in new federal and state funding that you've secured in just 1 year's time. That's really a monumental accomplishment for this agency and something that you really should be applauded for. In addition to that, you have new partnerships, expanded service into new areas, all in the same time period. And you've also made hard decisions to temporarily reduce your service and improve the reliability for your customers. All of that is directly a result of the leadership of this board and many of your talented, hardworking staff members in the room here today. So something to start with before we move into some of the other laying the groundwork discussion pieces. The other piece is we're sitting here in Savannah, Chatham, which is rapidly growing. Denise just mentioned all of the new developments that are about to or are currently breaking ground here. It's being accelerated by all of that new development. And then finally, while we're moving forward and we're coming out of a time of a lot of change into a new era of growth, CAT still has the same revenue stream that you had back in 2018. Your millage rate has not increased since 2018, but the rest of the world, the rest of the nation, and Savannah Chatham is experiencing very significant cost growth. So that's what we're dealing with, and you're not alone. Right now, your COVID relief funds, which I think we talked about a little earlier, those will be used to help address your lower operating revenue and address your higher operating costs in the short term. But really, we need more funds to not just continue what you're doing today, but to fund all of the great information that Denise just shared, all of the great recommendations we have in the master transit plan. So it leads us to ask, will CAT be able to meet and fund the mobility needs for Savannah Chatham in 2027 and beyond? When those COVID relief funds go away, will we be in a position to fund everything we want to fund, or even just continue service as it is today? The answer is right now, no. So a fiscal cliff right now, based in our financial model, a number of assumptions that we're making using your proposed budget, right now we're looking at a fiscal cliff in 2027. A fiscal cliff means your operating costs will be higher than your projected operating revenue in that year. So I'll orient you on this graph. You have your prior years in the gray. We have your future revenue projections in the green. You can see in 2023, last year, you actually, because of your temporary service mods, you have some savings, and you're going to be using those savings strategically. In 2024, your most recent proposed budget, around $32 million. We project that forward using the black bars that go across just with a straight growth, assuming just growth of your existing service. Once your COVID relief funds run out in 2026, we then have a gap there just to continue existing service. Now, I'm going to layer on top of that what we're projecting to be the master transit plan recommendations. So those add your existing service and then new service, everything we just talked about, all the mobility improvements, bus stop improvements, all of that recommendations based on short term, then medium term ramps up, and then long term ramps up even more. So we'll be meeting those with a set of financial strategies, and I'll show you what those look like in a moment. But just looking at 2027, our status quo revenue in 2027 without the COVID relief funds would be somewhere around 30 million. Our status quo costs would be somewhere around 35 million, so it'd be about 5 million more that year to operate current service. And then our master transit plan costs would be an additional 5 million per year. So that's a total of 10 million per year that we would want to identify to be able to fund existing service as well as expansion of service and put forward in the master transit plan. Any questions before I move forward on that? This is going to be the foundation to all the scenarios I'll show you in a moment. Okay, but before I move through some scenarios, I want to just kind of step back and say there's a difference between capital needs and operating needs, and they're both really critical for this agency. This agency has recently been able to secure a lot of, over $10 million in federal and state support, but most of that is largely restricted to capital needs. So really looking forward, and you're looking at that fiscal cliff, that's more of an operating cliff. You will need a new local funding source for operations in addition to what you have today. That would be important for operations, but also important because right now you have very limited local match dollars to be able to compete for federal and state funding beyond what you have today. We have several different options here, and I think I need to mention as well, there are many options that we're going to put forward in a second on the federal, state, local level. But in terms of operating support, the vast majority of operating support across the country comes from the local level. So that's why we're highlighting the local funding streams here. And each of these local funding streams have different applicability depending on what's allowed in the state of Georgia. And so you can see something like a SPLOST, you can't use that for operations, which I know you're familiar with that. Your T-SPLOST actually can be used for operations, but it has to be renewed every 5 to 6 years. So that's a limitation to long-term financial planning. And then we go all the way down to something like a transit SPLOST, which could go up to 30 years. So that's kind of the desire in the long term, is to have something that you know is dedicated to you, that you can put towards operating and capital, that you could even potentially leverage with a financing tool to be able to build out, all the great things that are recommended in the master transit plan. But to get there, you need to build the case first. You need to build your brand, show that CAT is worth major investment, and that's something that is incremental, and you do that over time. And so what we're going to show you in a moment is how, through these financial strategies in the short, medium, and long term, CAT can build the case for a higher share of investment all the way up to that more dedicated long-term revenue stream. And we're going to show you two different dedicated long-term revenue streams just to show you the impact of both. We'll start in our first scenario with what if CAT was able to secure more annual funding from the city and from the county, and a future T-SPLOST passed, and that this board approved a project list. So if that passed and we were able to get some annual operating support, where would we be once we hit the fiscal cliff? And then in the medium term, we'd continue using those funds to build the case more, have an increased share of county and city funding. We'd have a higher share of a T-SPLOST renewal. I mentioned that every 5 to 6 years you have to renew that source. And then we would use those funds to leverage more federal dollars, leverage more state dollars, increase and expand our partnerships, all the way to a point where we've really built the CAT brand and we're ready for a dedicated long-term revenue stream. And at that point, we'd be looking at, these are just two of many, many options, but we're showing you just two. One is if your special district transit tax is increased and expanded, and the other is if you were able to go for a countywide sales tax increase dedicated to transit. Okay, so in the short term, Remember, I showed you the first graph. We're layering on top of what was your, I call baseline, which has that fiscal cliff. So in this first scenario, we have your formula funds, your flex funds. These are all your current federal dollars, your SMART grant that you just received. You have new state dollars, all of this great stuff that you've been able to pull in this year. We have SPLOST funds, which are fully utilized with current needs. We're assuming that you would also, in the future, have a T-SPLOST passed, and that project list gets turned on in the model. And then we're assuming the rest of your needs are funded by the county and the city. We also have agency and program revenue from your new partnerships and expansion of service. So that is our short-term look. Everything that's checked is turned on in the model. And instead of having that fiscal cliff in 2027, you can see we're meeting not just our current operating need, but the master transit plan goal. So we have full funding for 24, 5, 26, and then we're setting ourselves up to go, to make the case for more investment in 27 and beyond. Any questions on this before I move on? The target operating budget would be around 40 million, just like your current budget that you have in your hand is 32 million. So a significant increase by 2027. And then our capital budget, we'd be targeting around 30 million to make several important investments in your system moving forward.
Comment.
Yes, sir.
From what you're saying, it's going to be very important that we let the public know, tell the public on the fact that T-SPLOST is necessary.
Absolutely.
We got to tell the story.
Yeah, you need that to be able to compete for more federal funds. The SMART grant was really unique. It didn't require a match, but that's not the case for the majority of them.
I think too, Director Locke, I think the notion that T-SPLOST is important across all transportation infrastructure in Chatham County, and all the partners that would participate. I think our challenge too at CAT that's a little unique is to make sure that we are seen as a selling point for it, if you will, that having transit included is considered essential by the public.
That was my point.
And the supporters. And I think that is a true statement. I think it's also up to us to make sure that we back that up with performance and service and all those things that we're working on right now.
Any other questions on this one? This was just a starting point to a slightly more aggressive scenario we'll see in the midterm. Okay, and in the midterm, now I'm showing you this chart again, and I'm checking more boxes, right? So we're using the local funding that you were able to secure in the short term to then make the case for more funding down the road. Because with every local dollar you secure, if you're able to have funds, local funds that you are using to bring in a bus and bus facilities grant, or you're bringing in a lower no emissions grant or a raise grant, all of that will help us continue to make the case for longer, more aggressive investment in the mid to long term. So in this scenario, we have more federal dollars, we have more state dollars, we have more local dollars, and more agency and program revenue. So we're assuming expansion. And you can see with this higher share of both operating and capital support, we would be able to meet those gold bar targets in those next 3 fiscal years, setting us up for looking ahead towards a more dedicated long-term revenue stream in the longer term. The operating budget would be more in the lines by the end of that term, 60 million, and then the capital budget would be about 35 million in this scenario. And finally, looking a little more, visionary into the future, we have 2 different scenarios. I'll show you the first one. If instead we turn on, we're going to turn on the special district transit tax increase. And we're going to have a pretty big increase here, 5 mil, because we want to show you what it's going to look like in terms of revenue potential between the 2 mechanisms. And you'll see this mechanism has a lower revenue potential per increased unit than a sales tax would. So for this one, we go 5 mil increase, and then we expand the district by 25%. That's kind of the assumption we're making in the model. And then we'd use that to bring in more federal dollars, more state funding, and more project-specific funding, which could include program revenue expansion, partnerships, joint development, other types of private involvement. And this is what it would
Amanda,
look
really
like.
quickly, one thing I would mention, if you'll put that slide back up for just a sec. One thing I would mention is I know that when we look at some of these things, when we're looking at them in our 2023 current day situation, we go, whoa, so some of these things, as Amanda mentioned, they are visionary. But the important thing right now is remember that this is a planning document. It's a living document. It will be adapted, it should be updated every 5 years or so. And these kinds of things will be updated, assumptions and so forth. And it's putting these things out there for discussion, for community discussion over the next 5 years. It's making sure that even if it's something that the community goes, I don't think so, but it's still important to have that conversation out there and see stimulate all of our thinking about what the possibilities are. As we continue to move forward. It doesn't imply commitments or that kind of thing at all, but it does imply that these are conversation points to have as we continue to grow and develop and succeed.
Thank you, Mr. Massimo. And I also would mention too, these are, and I can't say it enough, these are illustrative examples. They are based on a number of assumptions. The whole intent of this is just to show you what is possible in these time periods if you turn certain assumptions on and you make certain policy decisions. The financial model that we're developing as part of this scope of work is intended to be in Kat's possession when we're done, to where you can make several different scenarios as you're moving on forward. You can make changes to assumptions. If your SSD comes in higher than what you're currently projecting in your budget, you can make that adjustment and see what that's going to be able to be used for in the short term and in the long term. So I'm hoping that tool can be very useful for this agency moving forward. So this financial scenario shows a full funding with the property tax, the SSD increase of 5 mils. Keep in mind, I'm just showing you the operating side. This is when we get into a point of we have a source that could be used for operating and capital. That's a policy decision that this board will make at that time on what kind of program you'd want to fund. Is it more capital focused? Is it more operating focused? But we are going up to the master transit plan recommendation operating, and then the rest of it would be used for the capital budget. 110 million in operating, 45 million in the capital budget, ending in year 2035. So, and I'll show you that a different way with the transit SPLOST. So this is a 30-year, up to 30-year mechanism. Right now, you in Savannah Chatham, you would need to have more than one county, but we're assuming you'd maybe go for one county in this scenario. So there's a lot of assumptions we're making here that is legally allowed at that point in 2030. And this would only require a half-penny increase, which is why I wanted to show you the difference in terms of revenue generation by like millage. One millage increase is very different than 1% sales tax increase in terms of how much revenue you can generate. And also the growth, there's a big difference in your projected annual growth in both revenue streams as well. And we can talk more about that in the future. But very similar outlook where you'd use this revenue stream to pull down more federal grants, look at more state partnerships, even go into value capture and financing. Any questions before we move on to what that could fund? Any questions? Okay.
Thank you, Amanda. So I think Amanda's done a beautiful job of outlining a pretty complex set of scenarios for your consideration. So if we look at what we can do with these different funding scenarios, so we're going to walk you through kind of different design years, And one of the things that you'll see in the transit master plan is that the recommendations are set forward in a way that gives you some flexibility in the implementation by setting forward design years. So that's probably a little bit technical, but it's something that as you're going through the implementation of this, being able to recognize opportunities when they present themselves is something that's already been critical to your success and will continue to be critical to your success. And so having that flexibility kind of built into it, but also having a vision that you're working towards can kind of give you that opportunity to be able to take advantage of those opportunities as they present themselves. So if we look at design year 27, 40 million annually in operating costs that Amanda just outlined, what will that get us? 20% increase in fixed route service, alignment extensions in Fort Wentworth, increased frequency and expanded hours on service in key routes. And again, this is where we see those improvements being really critical to rebuilding CAT's brand and awareness in the community as I can count on CAT. So we heard a lot about that when we were out in the community, like, oh yeah, I used to be able to go out to CAT. I know I could get to it. And so there's been some challenges, certainly through COVID. So we want to build back that confidence in the community for CAT.
Denise, one thing I want to add right there is I think that is clearly increased frequency and expanded hours of service. And then the notion of having micro transit zones in places where we don't have strong system connectivity right now, but we can put something in there that could operate efficiently and effectively in a way that a fixed route could not, but get people to the places they need and want to go. Those two key pieces, if I could highlight anything out of it, those are key for us in a short-term strategy. And we are, thankfully advancing on those kinds of improvements now. So
absolutely, because I think what you'll see with microtransit too is you'll find people who have never used CAT services before or have only used maybe the DOT or the ferry, who now will start to pay attention to what CAT is doing in the community, and they will start to also. So it broadens your net, it broadens your reach, broadens your base, and it broadens your support.
I also think it's a key equity strategy because
Absolutely.
there are, especially those West Chatham microtransit zones that we're looking at for the SMART grant. Those are in areas where we have some populations that have not been as connected in the past and also have some challenges. Yeah. And so the notion that we can get people, especially those to and from jobs, as well as to the other kinds of services and places that they need to get to, is incredibly important. But those two things out of this year's worth of public outreach and public conversations, I don't think I've been to a meeting or a focus group or a stakeholder meeting yet that those two things haven't been the hottest topics of conversation.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. $30 million capital investment over a 4-year period. What will that get you? New ferry vessels. I'm trying to say vessel and vehicle at the same time. Maintenance facility updates, passenger facility improvements. Again, this is another big one that we've heard is the need to improve the stops. And we heard that, interestingly enough, from people both who use CAT and those that don't. Just people who drive through the community like, oh gosh, that person is standing and there's nowhere to sit. So again, it's a big part of that larger public perception about CAT to make those improvements. Ongoing investment in vehicles. Obviously, you are doing that now, especially with your transition to the electric vehicles, but continuing to make sure that your vehicles are always updated. And then facilities improvements. Questions on this one before I go to the next? All right, so then if we go to the medium term and look at design year 2030, 60 million annual in operating and 35 million in capital over a 3-year period. What will this get us? So the 60 million annually in operating costs will get us a 30% increase in fixed route service over the current year. So this is a 15-minute service onto your key lines, Abercorn and Waters. So this means somebody can go to the bus stop, not even have to look at a schedule. They can just go and know, just like the DOT now, they can just go and know that a bus will be there soon. Increasing frequency and expanded hours of service on your key routes, and up to 4 commuter express bus routes. So again, providing that connection to your jobs. The $35 million capital over a 3-year period gets you ongoing improvements in passenger facilities. So you continue to grow those passenger facilities, you also introduce mobility hubs throughout the community. Corridor investments to align with service investments. So this could be rapid bus style service, getting to those major employment centers, vehicle maintenance, and again, fleet replacement. You have to always be budgeting for that. And then state of good repair for all transit assets. It's really important as you're making these investments in these new assets that you're also maintaining them. So always having an eye on what those life cycle costs are for your investments, making sure that you are putting the money into those improvements to make sure that they are maintained and can live out their full life. And then looking to the longer term of the design year of 2035, up to $1 million annually in operating funds. Again, going back to the scenarios that Amanda presented, doubling in service from current levels. So this is where we really get to get excited about the opportunities. So expansion of your microtransit countywide. So anywhere in Chatham County, you can rely on CAT to be there to meet your needs. Increased frequency and expanded hours of service on bus routes. And new bus service to Hutchinson Island. Mr. Massimo has talked quite a bit about the expansions over on Hutchinson Island and being able to supplement that population, not only with a ferry service, but also new bus service to Hutchinson Island. And also expanding the ferry service, and then expanding your commuter express bus services. This is where we start to look at opportunities for more bus on shoulder. And really, as our region continues to grow, that's a great way that transit can provide something that you can't get in a personal vehicle. If you're sitting on traffic and the bus is able to use the shoulder to get you there more quickly, it becomes even more attractive and again, addresses that equity need. 30 million in capital over a 4-year period, again, gets improved investments in your passenger services, as well as along your corridors, continues your vehicle maintenance and your state of good repair. Questions, or Mr. Massimo, did you have any comments? Okay.
I guess I would say,
yeah,
because this is really important, it's every bit of this is grounded in that equity framework that you heard discussed at the very beginning. That is our highest priority. Is something we think about, and we have to put that lens on every project and every decision we make, and we are doing so. So I wanted to just be sure to say that for the public, as well as our board, a reiteration of how important that is.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that's interesting, and I may have said this at a previous presentation, but I think, in talking to the community, there are people that remembered, the good old days of CAT. There's also, we're getting so many people into our community who come from communities that have robust transit services, and they're like, wait a minute, and they have that expectation that we will have that in Savannah and Chatham County. And so we can talk about, yes, we are building towards that, but this gets to the vision that will meet that greater need of our region as we continue to grow. Okay, so next steps. We are here today. We will be back with you next month to present the final plan for adoption, and then again have the final document available in July.
It's the master transit plan to CATMOR for adoption should be June, not July.
It should. I just realized that as I was looking at the screen. So apologies.
In case someone read that and then very similar, as they mentioned, and I actually brought it today, the budget book that you get at the budget workshop, and then the printed budget document that you get later after the budget adoption, that's the same kind of approach that we're taking to delivering. So the deck is the same as sort of the budget workshop document, and then the actual document with all of the backup, and just like when you get your budget book will be the same.
So this will give you some time to digest, ask questions, and if we need to share additional information, we'll have that opportunity to do so. And certainly thank you again for your continued support and engagement in this really important and exciting initiative for CAT. Happy to answer any questions or turn it back over to Mr. Massimo.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your presentation.
Good job,
I'd
ladies.
like to thank Ms. Gloria Darcy for her presentation on our budget. I'd like to thank Sterling C. Crescent Richard for our update on our insurance. I also like to thank Master Transit Plan recommendations, like Nelson Niger by Amanda and Denise. This time, I'd like to show recognition of our union leadership. ATA Local 1324, our president is Donya Swinton. and our Vice President, Mr. Joaquin Reed. We appreciate you for being here today and your leadership. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I am Danya Swinton. I am the new president of Amalgamated Transit, Local 1324. I have been to CAT 8 years. I've been in transit and transportation 26 years. Thank you for having me.
I'm Rocky Reed, Vice President of Amalgamated Transit Union, Local 1324. I'm employed with Chatham Area Transit for 15 years, and I'm also a delegate with the Savannah Regional Central Labor Council.
All right. Thank you all for your dedication to CAT, your service in our union. Moving forward, we're going to point to our consent action items. I'd like to introduce CEO, Mr. Massimo.
Well, we have 11 items on consent, Chairman, that have all were discussed in the committee earlier and ready for you to take a motion on those, sir.
I second the motion.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Emerson? Not present for the vote. Director Odell?
Can you hear me? Yes.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Director Stone?
Yes.
Director Lockett?
Yes.
Director Adams?
Yes.
Director Robinson?
Yes.
Director Leggett?
Yes, ma'am.
Director Taylor?
Yes.
And Chairman Cody?
Yes.
Chairman, motion passed for the approval of today's consent items 1 through 11.
Next, we'll be moving on to our individual action items. We have one, our Plant Riverside Claim Easement Agreement.
Yes, Chairman. So the City of Savannah has executed a quitclaim deed and easement in favor of CAT for a strip of land encompassing the bulkhead area west of MLK at the river for the construction of a new ferry dock to comply with FTA's requirement for grantees to demonstrate satisfactory continuing control of real property as a prerequisite to awarding grants. The quitclaim deed, we're requesting board approval for the execution and recording of the quitclaim deed from the City of Savannah for a strip of land as described, and CAT will at the proceeds from FTA grant 1103-2021-1 to construct a new ferry dock and shelter and an accompanying access easement for the shelter. This is the ferry dock project that you are familiar with, that we are working to close on those grant arrangements now with FTA. This is an earlier one, an older one, and we are appreciative of the partnership with the City of Savannah and request the board's approval of this action.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Will that grant be enough to pay for that?
It will, sir.
So you need a motion.
Yes, we need a motion and a second. We don't
I
have
so
any
moved.
question.
Second that motion.
Now we can get a vote on.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Director Emerson? Okay, not present for the vote. Director Odell?
Yes.
Director Stone?
Yes.
Director Lockett?
Yes.
Director Adams?
Yes.
Director Robinson?
Yes.
Director Leggett?
Yes.
Director Taylor?
Yes.
And Chairman Cody?
Yes.
Chairman, motion passed.
We have,
Thank you, Chairman. A couple of items under that have been a focus as the CEO and Executive Director over this past month. We have been completing a review of all active contracts, and one of the key outcomes of that so far has been the changes that we're making in safety and our approach to safety at our facilities, as well as with our bus operations. You will be seeing some changes come out of that. We are going to be moving forward with our facilities with we are hiring security personnel that'll be our personnel. We're also working with the police department on a partnership with their presence and support of when needed, as well as with doing things like active shooter trainings and those kinds of things. And then we are also looking at, as was discussed in committee, some continued and ongoing investments in our technology, both in terms of the security of the access to the building, particularly this front entrance here at Cat Central. But the ITC, of course, has its own unique challenges. And so we're going to be bringing forward further details of that with both of those for you. We're also focusing on, as the leadership, the 3 R's: ridership, revenue, and recruitment. That's really where transit leadership's necessary occupation of thought is right now, and we are working diligently to be able to provide the service to, again, continue to grow back our ridership. We've had a very successful year in terms of increasing revenues, but we've got to continue that. And then recruitment, you've been seeing from the snapshots that you receive weekly that we really are starting to see, especially on the operator side, we are starting to see some real success there. We're still a little challenged on administration positions, but the operator support is really happening there, and we're pleased with that. Also have been diligently working on the budget as well as this master plan, and I'll be starting around, and I think we're going to institute these quarterly of CEO town halls with the operators, and I'm working with Chief of Staff Dumas and Communications Director Ariel Johnson to put those in place over the next month or so. So with that, I'd also like to turn it over to Ariel Johnson to just give you a couple of highlights from the communications report that was shared in committees earlier.
Good afternoon, Chairman Cody, CEO DeMassimo, Board of Directors, colleagues, ATU Union. We do appreciate everyone for being here today. So as Ms. DeMassimo said earlier, today I'm just going to focus on the Ridership Appreciation Month because I did the previous presentation last week in committees. Ridership Appreciation Month is super exciting for CAT because this is our time to show our riders how much we appreciate them for sticking with CAT. As you've heard throughout this morning, some of the challenges CAT has faced, but this month, in June, we get to turn it back and just have the focus on our riders. So, Ridership Appreciation Month, we all know that transit agencies across the nation, they lost riders all across the nation. So it's not just CAT, but this focus that we do every year in June is to just turn our focus to them, whether that's through outreach activities, events, and then also zero fare free days, which you guys voted on today. Some of the things we have planned is Dump the Pump, which is June 15th, which is a date that APTA made nationally for an outreach for people who is not usually riding CAT to ride CAT, but also our usual riders, they get the benefit of having that free day as well. Of course, Juneteenth holiday, CAT has a goal to make all holiday celebrations zero fare to stay in line with our mission to put equity in action. The Marketing and Communications Department teamed up with our CFO, Ms. Stephanie, to come up with a price on what these 4 zero fare days would look like. It has been determined that these 4 days, June 3rd, 4th, 15th, and 19th, can be extended to fixed route for $3,296 per day and paratransit $265.27 per day for a total of $14,254.08. 2 of those days, June 3rd and 4th, will occur on the weekend, which gave us a lesser price than the Mondays and Friday. The Marketing Communications Department plans to host several events for our riders that shows how much CAT appreciates them, as well as show how much CAT hears them. So in the month of June, we'll have like a Tuesday spotlight where we'll get our riders to take pictures while they're on the bus and tell us why they love CAT, and they will be put into a random drawing to receive a free marketing item. And then the platform party that was a big success last year, we're going to bring it back this year, the last Friday of June 30th, where we partner with the local radio station to bring music. As you can see, we had snacks, and it'll also be an opportunity for our leadership to be on board to talk about things happening at CAT with the riders on site, including the SMART grant. And then some of our operators who were down there, they also joined in on the fun, got off the bus for a couple of minutes just to speak to our riders and, appreciate them as well. So we are super excited to bring this back. Thank you.
Exciting.
Great. Our next report is the service delivery update from our Chief Operating Officer, Dr. Manning.
I was gonna say good morning, but I realized we're past morning. So good afternoon to all viewers watching us, and also Chairman Cody and CEO Ms. Faye. Today I'm gonna tell you more about our operation side of the business and also our delivery service. I will be rushing through my slides because of time purposes. And also I said most of the things that I'm about to say during the committee meeting last week. So on time performance, we have a target of 70%. The month of April, we're 10% short. And everything I keep saying is all tied to manpower. The more people we have, the more we can be on time, the more buses can go out and more we can be reliable. So next slide, please. This is not my normal presentation, I'll go into details, but I just have to write this down today. Ridership, our target was 131,000. For the month of April, we did pretty well, if you can see on the slide. We're 152,000, which is over our target of 131. So that's the good news. The more people can ride our system, not only revenue, also tells the public that we're doing good. So that's all the KPIs that we watch. Ridership is the key. If the system is reliable, ridership is always going to go up. Next slide, please. Now on the paratransit side of business, our target is 93%. That is how the percentage set up for us to be on time. The month of April was slightly behind if you compare to month of March. We were 89%, which is not even close to our target. And the reason was we had absenteeism and also tied to manpower. As people retire, they don't show up, we can never be on time. So everything is manpower, which we're working hard. I will tell you what plan I have to change all that in my last slide. Excellent. Ridership was above our target, not that much, but at least it was over our average. We went up last month 5,151 compared to our target of 5,041. So that is, anytime we go above our KPI, it's a good news. All right, next slide, please. Online reservation, I promised the board that this number is going to go up. Last month was up, guess what, we came down again. So I have talked to the communication department. I think we have to do a more media campaign. It's on our website, but on our social media like Facebook and others, it's not there. So we're gonna start campaigning, put all on our website that people can reserve rides by going online. If they do that, and I'm asking the public to please use our online services for paratransit reservation, If they do that, the call volume to the call center is going to reduce, and that will also help us on our target. Currently, our target is just 1 minute wait, and if more calls comes in and we don't have the manpower, people will be on the phone too long, and that's not what we want the public to know. So please, if you're watching this presentation, use our online reservation for paratransit, and we will also put on our social media starting tomorrow, right? Next slide, please. On the marine service, despite we're having challenges with our ferries, there's a demand, as you can see, that our ridership on the marine is always high. Though we have Bass Bridge that is not being counted on whenever the ferry goes down. But if you look at the numbers, it's way over our target, and that's the good news. So we plan that when we have the new ferries, it might go even more high. Now, this number changed, and I'll give you a reason why. So the mean distance between vehicles is how long can we run our buses before they break down. The national average is 14,000 miles. And if you can see, last month it was 16,000. So the 12,000 you see now is because board member Clinton decided that we should be specific on identifying what vehicles. So we took out the electric vehicles, which have never had any problem. They can run out. So now this 12,000 you're seeing is only based on our hybrid diesel fleet. This is so they are below the national average, but at least they are above our target. But this is not including electric vehicles. So if you see the 16,000 as of last month, March, it was higher because that was including the electric vehicles. Slide. Now, this is a problem, but again, we can fix it if we have the resources, staff shortage. So the board has set, this is the target that the board set, 60 seconds, which is 1 minute. That's our target. You don't have to be on the phone more than a minute if you call in about anything from call center. So anytime this number goes up over 60, it's problematic. That means people are on hold more than the 1 minute or 60 seconds that we have as a target. Now, this is all pertaining to a shortage of staff. We have FMLA resignation and also open positions. So everything again is tied to manpower, and that's why I'm asking the public to use our online reservation for paratransit. If we do all that, the volume of calls coming to the call center will minimize, and therefore people will not stay on the phone too long past that 60 seconds, which is a minute. Last month was a little bit better, 79. This time in April, 110 seconds, which is above our 60 seconds. So this is a number that we should be watching. And call center is a key because that's how the public knows about our services. Next slide, please. Okay. Now, just a slide that I talked about. If you look at this, the board set up a target of, if I run it up, 16,000. And we have incoming calls, so we have 16,000 calls that we expect to come in. It's really 15,750 number. I'm just running up. And so the less calls that come in, that means people are certified with our service. If you stand at the bus stop and the bus don't show up, or the car tracker is saying the bus is coming, the bus don't show up, the next thing you're gonna do is, let me call center to find out. So if all these are fixed, the volume of calls will be limited. And so last month we had 13,132, which is okay compared to previous month. So again, the lower this number, the better, indicating that few calls are coming to the call center. Okay. Last slide, and I'll give you all update. So this is, I'm gonna spend a little bit of time on this, but I'll try to rush it through. The CDA training that I've been talking about from day one is a key to everything that we wanna do. Expansion, all the programs, It's pertaining to revenue too, because if our service is reliable, trust me, I've been in this industry too long to know that people will not drive because they'll be at the bus stop, the bus will show up, bus frequency is shorter. That means every few minutes buses are coming. And if we don't get this problem fixed, we can't expand. And if we do, it's going to be a problem because right now we have so many services that are suspended. So I would like to take this opportunity to thank the board for approving the CDA training program. I have said this from day one that I've been on board, that this is a way out. So starting tomorrow, since the board has approved it, we're gonna do a very aggressive campaign. We're gonna take a bus, which I could name it HR on Wheels. We're gonna take a bus to the communities and let them know that we're recruiting. All we need you to have is a clean driver's license, get a CDA permit, and be 23 years old. Come on board, we'll train you with pay. While in training, you're getting paid. So public, listen to me, please. We will be starting the program June 26th for CDA training. The requirements are just simple: a permit and be 23 years and have a clean driving record. And we will train you for 8 weeks to get a CDL and be with us. So that campaign is going to go on since the board has approved it. We're going to start that tomorrow. Very aggressive campaign. You're going to see HR on Wheels. I'll be on that bus to make sure that we will tell people how good it is. Also, we have a gentleman that came in. We negotiated with him to run some advert on TV and reach out mass. The more people know about the program, the better it is. I guess we'll be the only one in the city offering this program, the CDA program. So we are ready to roll. June 26th is our start date. The power transit vehicles, my understanding with my communication with Georgia Power, it will take about 4 weeks for the whole infrastructure installation. So we'll be rolling out the electric buses probably by the end of June, if all goes well. And we're gonna keep the board informed about where we are in terms of timeline. We have 3 new buses that came in about 2 weeks ago. We're gonna be registering them tomorrow. They're putting cameras on and fare boxes also. Anticipated date to roll out to revenue line will be June 15th. June 15th, we're gonna have 3 new buses on our revenue line, and they're all numbered 2023. We have only 1 elevator in our building. That elevator inspection was expired. The good news is that it's being fixed. And so if you ride in our elevator, have the confidence that it's safe, it's being inspected. And that's it I have to share with you. The fixed route buses, as you all know, the process takes too long. It's about 2 years to have a bus built up. So if we want to go out now and buy a bus this year, anticipation date of delivery will be 2025. We cannot do that, we cannot wait. So I have identified 25 vehicles that are 2018 that we're gonna refurbish. New engine, new transmission, new suspension, new whole body works, brand new seats that you can't even tell if they're old. And that will last us out about 6 to 7 years. And so that's the route we're gonna go. When we're ready, we'll let the board know, and that'll be a board action item. Our operations division, from Ms. Fierce instruction, everybody have to come up with a plan, see how you're gonna make your division better. I have come up with a proposal, very unique proposal. Ms. Fair likes it. She's working on some few stuff, and then once it's approved, we'll bring it to the board. So I'm separating paratransit from fixed route. So the call center is now currently, if anybody call into the paratransit to fixed route, it's just 2 people talking over each other. And that is not the way to do business. So I'm separating them. You're gonna have a call center for paratransit only. You're gonna have a call center for fixed route only. This way they'll be working very productively. I will also be putting supervisors to zones. So you're gonna have a supervisor from 4 a.m. to 10 p.m. at the ITC. The supervisor's role is to make sure that buses leave on time and also play any role that customers might need, which is currently we don't have that. we're gonna put them all in zones. So when there's any accident at any particular place, they can attend to the accident on time instead of traveling all across town. So that proposal is already sent to Ms. Fay, and we'll keep you updated when we get to it. Also, whenever we have a ferry breakdown, we have to provide a fixed route to do the bus bridge. So I decided to train the captains on the ferry to know how to drive a bus. So when there's a bus bridge, we already short. We don't have to pull one of our drivers from the fixed route side to do the bus, but the captain on that ferry will have to take a bus and do the bus bridge. So when we started the June 26th CDA training, the captains will also be part of that training to acquire CDL. So also I was able to identify 2 vehicles. Currently, the fixed route didn't have any relief vehicles. The vehicles were they were using supervisor's vehicles. So I was able to identify 2 vehicles. We cleaned them up and fixed them. All they needed was batteries. We put 2 new batteries on them, and we donate those vehicles to the fixed route as relief vehicles. So that's the end of my presentation. I'll take any questions if there's any. All right, if there are no questions, then that's the end of my presentation. Thank you all for listening. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Thank you, Dr. Meany. I'm going to do a very brief planning and infrastructure report. Of course, the full report was delivered in committee, but the highlights are that we are continuing coordination with Port Wentworth, Amazon, and Hyundai. We actually have proposals in with all of them and are in ongoing meetings and coordination to look at what those kinds of service opportunities are and what the kind of agreement would need to be in place in order to underwrite those and fund them. The Garden City ribbon cutting that we're all incredibly proud of is scheduled for June the 2nd. You heard a lot from the master transit plan today, and we look forward over this next month to your questions and comments. We are still working hard on grant performance. We do have a couple of grants that we've mentioned before, one of which is the grant for the dock that you made the approval on today that we are still working to complete, but expect that to happen soon. We are on the COA TDP side. We are reviewing the preliminary alignments and schedules with the operations staff and bus operators. And I want to particularly give a shout out to Vice President Joaquin Reed, who's here today. He has really been an enormous help, as have many of the operators, but he's really provided some real leadership to that in terms of reviewing the COA TDP and giving us the benefit of his insights in terms of operations. And it's really been a huge value add to that. We are working on the cost estimates that go along with those shorter term improvements. The plan for microtransit service implementation, one of the things that we will be doing is looking at leadership of that rather than paratransit as an on-demand service, and so is microtransit. So we will be bringing those things together into an on-demand services portfolio, if you will, for management. And we are looking at gradual increase in service levels as permitted by bus operator availability. Again, it's back to those 3 R's that we talked about earlier in the presentation. And planning has also, we've been having conversations with partners, including an outreach from Goodwill. We're still working with United Way and with Savannah State, Savannah Tech, and Georgia Southern in terms of how we can fulfill needs that they have and how we can work together moving forward. In particular, in the SMART grant, you may recall that in addition to the Savannah State internship opportunity that is funded there is a training opportunity that is funded in that grant. We are working, you probably saw a recent news article about Savannah Tech entering into agreement with Hyundai for training. We are piggybacking off of that with Savannah Tech with the training opportunity in our SMART grant for them to provide the training for the operators and the mechanics and so forth on the electric vehicle and electric charging infrastructure piece moving forward. Again, it's all about building the community building capacity in our community and those partnerships. So we are really proud to be working with President Love on that as well. And that's all we have for planning. And with that, I will turn it over to Ms. Royal to give us a final presentation from finance today.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Massimo. Our April financial update is as follows. We have year-to-date actual versus year-to-date budget comparisons. Our actual April expenses, 1.4 million. Our revenues are 1.4 million. Our expenses are 1.8. Net 348,000. As we will note, the expenses are over the revenues, and as we talked earlier regarding some of our agency programs are still not operating, this is the result of less revenue for this month. Year-to-date actual revenues, 24 million, expenses, 19 million, net 5 million. Year-to-date budget, 25 million, expenses, 25 million. We have a net with the expenses being slightly under revenues coming in at 38,000. Our year-to-date actual versus year-to-date budget variance, 425,000. Expenses, 19 million. Year-to-date actual. Expenses, year-to-date budget, 25 million. The variance of 5,900,000. The expenses for year-to-date being lower than budget is basically due to the fact that in our fiscal year 2023 budget, we had positions budgeted that we did not fill. Those vacancies is a result of the variance. Next slide, please. This is basically a chart of our revenue category. Our revenue highest categories, paratransit, 35.55%, grant, 34.11%. Our third category highest is the contract revenue, which is 13.67%. The remaining categories that we receive for revenue is all under 10%. Next slide, please. Expense category. With our expense category, our highest areas are salary and wages and employee benefits. Salary and wages at 44%, employee benefits 20%. The remaining categories are 10% and below. Next slide, please. Our cash receipts for the month of April 2023 is as follows. Our special district taxes, 100,000. April is always a low month for special district transit taxes. Paratransit funds, 493,000. Our POR fees, which collected from the city of Savannah, 63,000. FTA grant assistance, 62,000. The grant assistance is a little low in April. However, it's only due to timing of receipt of payments. We have received payments for the month of April, but we received them in the month of May. That's why it's not showing on this particular slide. Our operating cash balance, 6,624,000 as of April 30th. Next slide, please. Our projected cash, as stated, our April ending balance was 6,624,000. We are projecting our June 30th, 2023 balance to be 9,965,000. We are anticipating receiving a high receipt from Chatham County Transit special district tax in the month of June, which will give us this balance of $9 million. This concludes our presentation.
One thing I would mention, just for the benefit of the board and the public, that we are working on right now, because you may have read a little bit about it in the media, is that there are some grants that were funded through some of the special funding that we saw during the COVID time period, ARP funds and so forth, that are, there's been some conversation around if those funds were unobligated, that there might be some rescission of those funds. Every transit property in the country got notifications around this, both through APTA and through our state DOTs and so forth over the past week or so. We do have one grant that was in that position, but it will be obligated by the end of the month and therefore will not be available for any clawback or rescission activity. So it was for $550,000. So just wanted, in case you heard about that or read about that somewhere in the media or so forth, to know that that is not going to be an issue for us, as we, at least as we know today.
Thank you, Ms. Massimo. Thank you for that.
With that, I'll turn it back over to you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Massimo. I'd like to thank you all for Mr. Massimo for your record report. I'd like to thank Dr. Johnson and Ms. Roy. I'd like to thank you for your next. Before we head into executive session, we'll take a 5-minute break. Before we head in there, we're going to hear from our final presenter of the day, which will be our very own Director Taylor.
Good afternoon, Chairman, Mr. Massimo and staff. As of October of last year, I became the chair of a committee which we go out and we ride on the vehicles periodically, whether it's fixed route or paratransit. There are 3 items that have come up consistently, and me and Dr. Manning have been in discussion about all 3 of these items. I don't want you to think they've been not attended to by Dr. Manning. The first one on the paratransit side is their software. The software needs to be updated because it doesn't give you an actual account of where the vehicles are, and it gives the dispatcher, the call center, and the passenger a false sense of security of where that vehicle is. If I'm at home and I call the call center and the call center said, well, your vehicle is 8 miles away, 2 minutes later, the vehicle is rolling up, and I know vehicles can, move faster than I am, but not in 2 minutes. I don't think they can go 8 miles. So it's not very accurate. Sometimes it goes down. They can't track the vehicle, and that's frustrating for everyone. Like I said, I speak to customers, and I'm always in contact with the call center and with the dispatchers. And so I just think it's time for an upgrade for that particular system. Everyone that I come in contact with, they're doing their due diligence, but I think the system is the one that's failing them in this particular instance. The second area is the call center. The call center is short on personnel, and that's no one's fault. It's just that the volume of calls that come in, and you can see it on Dr. Manning's slide, it can be overwhelming for the amount of personnel that they have in there. I think they have 2 or 3 personnel that are missing, that they're short. And I know you're gonna say, well, that's only 2 or 3 people, but that's a lot of calls that a person can take. And I'm sure that's just a recruiting thing that Dr. Manning, I'm sure, is in charge of. Last but not least, most of the drivers are concerned about this lunch break, them not having.
Hey, Mr. Kelly.
Hey, Ms. Odell, I wanted to make sure
Excuse me? Oh, okay. It keeps coming up, they don't have a scheduled lunch break. And I know they can take breaks if they get, if they get a break, but sometimes during the day, it's back to back to back to back. And so they don't get some drivers get a lunch break, some drivers don't. And, you know, it's not fair across the board. And again, me and Dr. Manning have been in discussions about, you know, because I brought up a suggestion, if you give them a 30-minute lunch break, that means they're in the rotation for 30 minutes longer. And I don't know how they can work that schedule out, but if you just give them 30 minutes, even whether it's paid or unpaid, they're in the cycle. They're in the routes 30 minutes longer. That means you have more drivers out for 30 minutes longer. They'll get their lunch break, everybody's happy. And like I said, it sounds easy coming from me. I don't know how difficult that is, but that's just something that I've discussed with Dr. Manning, you know, in the past. That's my report. If there are no questions, I want to thank everybody for their time and their patience.
I have a question.
Yes.
How many employees short of you on the call center, in the call center?
I think either 2 or 3. I know 2 went out on sick leave and weren't able to come back, and I think they have another person that was that left. So you had, I know when I first started on the board, since I've been there, there's 3 people that have left, and they have not replaced those 3.
What is the capacity over there?
Excuse me?
What is the capacity over there? I mean, I'm sure they can.
Yeah, currently we are short of 4. That is including 1 FMLA. 1 resigned just 3 days ago. And like you said, even if 1 shortage, they have 500 to 700 calls daily on average. So even if 1 is out, it's a problem. Currently, we have 4 shortage for the call center.
Thank you.
I have a question about, lunch break. Is that not a part of, many people here today, is that not a part of
a requirement that they get lunch breaks? I would just only suggest that maybe we need to talk with the union to see how that's set up as far as what they require for each one of those, part of the union negotiations and things like that.
You want me to answer? They used to get lunch break, scheduled lunch breaks for end of run. I think that's something that needs to be discussed again with the union and management. Because when we were short-staffed and they changed the runs around, they didn't implement the lunch breaks in. So now that I think they're getting fully staffed, because I think it's just like 10 people more they may need over there, or 20. So I think that's something that needs to be discussed going further, that we can discuss with management to get the breaks back into their runs, because I know that is an issue they brought to the union.
We have discussions scheduled upcoming with you, I know.
Yeah, we do.
And so it'll be a part of what management discusses with them.
I also would like to commend every driver and supervisor. I always talk to Dr. Manning about them. They're out there doing a great job. I get a chance to not only be a board member, but I'm a passenger. And some of the drivers know me, some of them don't. So sometimes I'll hop on and I just take a ride and speak to other passengers. And I know during the pandemic, things weren't, so smooth, but like I said, I noticed the difference, and there are other people that are noticing the difference. So the items that I brought up today will just make Chatham area transit.
All right. I think
email. You talking about returns?
Yeah.
And the last return I have is 2019. So
Yeah, we just make Chatham area transit, run a little smoother. But again, everybody that I've come in contact with, whether they know me or not, customer service friendly. They know what they're doing, and they're doing the best job they possibly can. So again, commend Dr. Manning and his people. They're doing a great job. Any other questions?
Dr. Taylor, one other thing I would mention is at the CEO, the APTA CEO seminar that I attended this past weekend, We had several sessions that were related to technology and AI and those kinds of things and how those can be used to really help provide more effective customer service when we're all still struggling with the staffing issues. And so we're working with our IT innovation manager and so forth on some of the things that we can do for the more routine kinds of questions that may come up, or just when there's just a particular piece of information needed to get it quickly. And so in addition to putting a strong emphasis on hiring and so forth, so I wanted you to be aware, we're looking at all the different tools we might have in our toolkit to help do better and be better in this space.
Like I said, I've been pleased since I've been here. Like I said, not only as a board member, as a passenger, you can see the difference. And that's why I always encourage everyone, whenever you get a chance, just get on the bus. Don't just get on, take a ride, come back and get off. And you'll see what everybody in Chatham County is experiencing. Because it is an experience, even on the ferry. I've taken the ferry. I love the ferry. I don't have a reason to go to the convention center. I just go. So like I said, I'm looking forward to the new ferries that are coming, and I'm looking forward to riding on the electric buses, other than in a parade.
Well, that's the best time.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, yeah. What's needed, we'd like to get an inside peek at what's going on. Next will be executive session. We'll take a 10-minute break. Before we do that, we'd like to first and second.
Second.
And Chairman Cody, I'll do.
Going to executive session is before discussion or voting on authorizing negotiation purchase, dispose of lease property as provided, discussion of deliberation of periodic evaluation, creating an employee and compensation as provided.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Butler,
Yes,
do we need to have two separate motions, or can we cover both items in one motion?
you can cover in one motion. Just make sure you announce and put on your affidavit both grounds for executive session.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Director Emister? Not present for the vote. Director Odell? Not present for the vote. Director Stone?
Yes.
Director Lockett?
Yes.
Director Adams?
Yes.
Director Robinson?
Yes.
Director Leggett?
Yes.
Director Taylor?
Yes.
And Chairman Cody?
Yes.
Chairman, motion passed to enter into executive session with a 5-10-minute break.
I know you was. You had to be quick.
That was, yeah, what I meant for y'all to see. Yeah. Yeah, that'd be good. Because I'm coming back to the. But I don't know how long this session will be. Okay. Yes, give them a call. Right, you got the drums off, so give them a call. Yeah. Whatever you tell me.
Okay, because, you know, I'd rather have two than one, because these guys are moving at us.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take that long, because I used to do it myself. So I'm gonna call the police department, see what they can do. Two options.
Okay. Because we still wait, we still look at July 3rd, right?
No, I thought it was June 29th, right? I think it was June 29th.
It's gotta be a Monday or.
Yeah, I think June 29th is a Thursday. Because remember, you gave me 2 days.
Right, yeah.
And you took one
Yeah,
away.
yeah, not at
No,
all.
oh, you took away the 29th.
But let me, yeah.
I thought you said the 29th was the day.
Okay, well, let's work on.
Which is,
I have that count.
just let me know what day, and then.
Well, hold on the 29th, but when I get back up, I'm gonna take care. Yeah, yeah.
Chairman, we're back in open session.
Thank you. Welcome everybody back. We back from executive session. That being said, we don't have any old or new business. We have any questions or comments? We adjourn this meeting. All right, I would like to thank all of our students for graduation this week.
Yes.
And
there's more coming.
I know.
oh yeah, all week long.
They're still graduating
To you all.
up until Thursday.
At this time, we'd like to adjourn this meeting. Our next meeting will be June the 27th, 2023. Thank you. We adjourn this meeting.
All right, Mr. Chairman.
I will get that to you, Director Taylor, as soon as I get back.
Yeah, you could just send me a text.
Thank you,
or email.